Welcome into the Four Verticals Podcast, episode 111, here for this July 17th, 2025, high atop a dry Jacksonville, Florida for the first, not the first time in a while. It's been dry for the past couple of days, but lo and behold, as they say, the rainy season will continue. Let me go ahead and mute this. I was hearing myself on the feedback from the headphones, but hopefully I don't think you guys heard that. But yeah, I got a big show for you guys today. Spicy predictions continue as per usual. Team record projections, some reaction to Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio. We'll talk about that, and we also have Q&A. So if you guys are new here, first of all, welcome to the show. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, YouTube channel. Please do so. We are the season is about 30 or 40 days away, so I think a lot of you are going to be wanting some places to cover college football and other personalities, and some are taking breaks, others who don't know what happens to them. But we are here all the time, regardless if you have no show or not. We will always have content for you, regardless. We will never let you guys go in the dark. We will never just bail on you. This show is mostly 365 live all year round. We always have shows when we can, and live shows when we can. But if we don't have live shows, we'll have something pre-recorded for you. So there's always that. And just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, podcast feed, Twitter, all those places you know to find them. They should be in the channel description. You can always go there and find them. But yeah, I got a loaded show for you guys today. A lot of things to discuss as per usual. So before we do, I'm gonna get some water and then we'll jump on in. You know what's really weird? It's the number one. We'll get started here in a second, but number one tip for anyone who's getting into the podcasting business, who is talking for a while, be sure to bring water with you. That's like number one rule, is to have some sort of something to keep the whistle wet, if you will. So spicy predictions. We've been doing this for about a month now. How it works, if you're new here, we have a couple of predictions. We'll do about 3 to 5 predictions we'll have. They're sort of like bold predictions, but we're not calling them bold predictions or spicy predictions. So think of them like a scaling for like hot wings or whatever, if you ever dive into that type of stuff. So mild could happen, warm maybe, hot slightly more unlikely, spicy totally unlikely. We have 3 ones today that are packing some heat. Not spicy though, but you'll see what I'm referring to, or what I'm talking about. First one, Michigan Wolverines. We did their season team record projection about couple last month, I believe. Michigan goes 5-7, and Sherman Moore is fired. That's a hot on the scale from mild to spicy. I don't think that's going to happen. Michigan, again, we did their team record projection a while ago. Let me look and see what we. I know it's been about a month or so. Their win total from Vandal, not a sponsor of the show, just the asset that we use, was 8.5 over under. Best case scenario for them, we had it at 9-3. Worst case, 6-6. Reasonable 8-4. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they do. The bare minimum is, I think, is a bowl game. I think with bringing in the new offense, Bryce Underwood, yes, he's still relatively young. I just don't think this roster is necessarily a disaster roster. I think they are somewhat disaster proof. Now, of course, I say that, and we said that infamously about Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. They go 5-7. So there's always an exception to the rule, but unless we know that, of course, we can't have, I don't have Doctor Strange powers. I can't go forward in time and see what happens. So I'm assuming that Michigan is disaster proof. This doesn't happen. Sherman Moore is not fired. Bryce Underwood, sort of like Dylan Raiola last year for Nebraska. He had his up and downs, but of a sweet and sour year. They go, I think, 7-6, I believe. They finished up the season. That to me is sort of the gauge, I think, for Michigan is you're going to take your lumps. Sherman Moore is not going to be there for all the games. He's suspended for a couple of them. They go on the road to on the road to Oklahoma. Brent Venables versus a freshman quarterback. I favor the head coach / D coordinator in that position. I just don't think this is likely. I think this is a hot on a scale of mild to spicy. Next one, Tulane and LSU, both teams in the state of Louisiana. One's obviously bigger than the other. Both make the College Bowl playoff. This isn't ever hot. This is kind of unlikely. Now, one of them making it would be a mild. That could definitely happen, right? Tulane or LSU. Of course, Tulane would be the G5 rep. LSU would either just be in because they had a really good year or they win the SEC or whatnot. And they're like one of the best teams in the country. 12 best teams in the country. So one of them could make it, but then both of them making it, I don't know. I mean, I find it hard to believe. I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for John Strumwell when he's done, not only at Tulane, his first year, but at Troy. Massive pedigree of coaching, both, as a head coach and as an assistant coach in the SEC. A lot of experience. He's done a lot over his career. He's very decorated, right? A lot of folks like Josh Pate's been hyping him up for about 3 years now, and he's been validated in that. But look up Tulane's schedule here. I'm sure, as I know they play Duke, which is ironic because their former quarterback is starting for Duke. But I haven't navigated the schedule for them in a little bit. So they start out with Northwestern. After they should win that game. South Alabama, same. They should win that game. It gets tough in a hurry a little bit. They get Duke at home. Again, it's their Tulane's former quarterback at Duke coming back. Then they go to Ole Miss. It's their return trip because Ole Miss came there a couple years ago. It's technically a rivalry and an historic older one, even though it's not really acknowledged anymore. But those are probably your two big games, Duke and Ole Miss, at home and on the road. I would imagine for Tulane to make the playoff, they probably have to go undefeated. One loss probably won't cut it, but we'll see. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Ole Miss, and I think that Ole Miss game is just going to be so difficult. The talent, again, this is, not me, like, totally disregarding John Strumwell. Again, he's a fantastic head coach. It's just the talent disparity between a G5 and even a fairly decent SEC team is just there's too wide of a gap. Unless there's some crazy, insanity turnovers or weird stuff happens, during the game, that could obviously potentially occur, right? We don't know for sure, but it's unlikely. But I don't know. I because of that schedule and how if their non-con schedule, how tough it is with that Duke and Ole Miss game back to back. I just don't think it's going to happen. So while there's a universe where it could happen, it's a pretty bold statement to make, right? Both somewhat major programs from Louisiana, both getting it. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think only one of them does, and it's probably going to be LSU. So that's why it's in the hot category. Next one, or the last one, Iowa. The Iowa Hawkeyes have a top 5 offense in the Big Ten. This is hot. On a scale of mild to hot, or mild to spicy, it's a hot. Iowa, they got the transfer. Who was it? The transfer quarterback from, I believe it's from North Dakota State. Yeah, it's Gronowski. Dual threat guy, can run around. They also got the Helinski kid from Wake Forest, and they got the other QB from Auburn. I would imagine that Gronowski's probably your starter from South Dakota State. Look, I'm not here to hate on Iowa. Kirk Ferentz is a good coach. He's a good man. He's been there for a while. No real massive scandal besides a couple years ago. There were some off-the-field issues that got resolved. For the most part, good coach, consistent offense. It's whatever. It's okay. Not my favorite in terms of, stylistically. But, Kirk Ferentz has been there for, even longer than I've been alive for. And they've also have one of the more veteran D coordinators in Phil Parker. But them having a top 5 offense in the Big Ten, I just don't think it's going to happen. There are so many other teams you can put in that category. Ohio State's one, Penn State. USC could be up there as well. Just don't forget about them, right? Lincoln Riley's still there. Illinois could be up there as well. Indiana, potentially. Washington as well. Don't forget about them as well. So that's why it's hot. There's just so many other teams, unless, for example, at Washington, if DeMont Williams gets hurt or something, then I could see maybe them not being the top 5 or being up there. But outside of like major injuries and weird stuff happening, I don't see this happening. And I think Iowa will have a potentially top 10 offense based on all the changes they made. They got rid of Ferretz's son. They bring in the former Western Michigan head coach to come in, Lester. There is a potential that they could be a lot better, right? They got better last year. What was it? They scored like 40 or so points in the game for the first time in like 3 years or whatever. Yeah, it was who was it? Washington. Yeah, they blew out them, and they blew out Northwestern too, and they blew out Wisconsin. So it's not impossible. But then again, when they face teams that are like better than them or equal to them, like Ohio State, teams like Missouri in the bowl game, UCLA to a certain extent last year in the games they lost, Iowa State too. It's just the offense just doesn't look good. It's still clunky. It's obviously their talent is not as good as those teams, especially Ohio State, at least offensively. But I don't know. I mean, look, there's certainly an avenue where they could potentially sneak into the top 5 again if other teams don't perform to the level we think they could. Right? Again, think teams like Illinois, maybe Michigan as well, USC. But I just have a hard time thinking that a Lincoln Riley team, being USC, would have a worse offense than Illinois. Than Iowa. I just don't see it happening. I would be stunned if that happens. And even despite the fact that, again, I think they upgraded that quarterback, probably the best quarterback they've had there this decade, probably more athletic than they've had in the past. I just don't see it happening. So unless that happens, I don't think this is going to come true. So that's why it's in the hot category on a scale of mild to spicy. And look, it could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. That'd be nice if Iowa would have a competent offense to complement their consistent defense. But I don't know. We'll see. Look, if it happens, it happens. But me personally, if I were to make a prediction here, I would say no. So that's why it's not there. Once again, if you are new here, again, we do this show twice a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays in the afternoon, around 1 o'clock. I know we were later Tuesday for several reasons, but we do the show. Again, we always try to make sure we have a show, even if we're not live. We always make sure there's a show available to you to watch. Again, we will not be like some of these other programs who should not be named, though they may have been named already, who are taking random vacations, and even though they claim to be, having shows all year round, and I get it. There's, shit happens all the time. Things happen. But we here at For Verticals Podcast, we keep our word. And look, if we don't have shows ready to go, if we're not able to go live, or for some reason, if we have to take a vacation, we'll have something in front. We did this back first week of June. We had something pop up to where we could not do shows live, and I pre-recorded something, and it was there for you guys, right? So, and same with 4th of July, where we had something ready to go on the 4th of July Eve, and we'll do it again, right? Well, for Christmas, we'll have probably a couple of shows ready to go. So we always have a commitment here to make sure that we have content ready, unless I just get like badly ill or whatever, and I can't talk or whatever. That's different. Then I'll let you guys know that's more of a serious emergency. But for vacations and whatnot, I want to have something pre-recorded for any. I'm just talking about this for any shows who take long extended breaks for whatever reason. My advice to keep your fans happy: have something available. If it's live or not, if it's premiered, if it's pre-recorded, doesn't matter. Always have something around there. Don't ever ghost your audience like that. Just saying, hey guys, we're taking a break. We're gone for a couple weeks. We ain't gone for a couple weeks. If I just said you're always there for us. We here understand that, and we will always keep you in the know on certain things. If we have to move some stuff around, we'll never just ghost you guys like that or do something like that. Again, even though I know things happen, but still, I mean, I don't know. That's just me. And but yeah, just make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are always welcome to new folks tuning into the show. And I think this season for us, this upcoming season, college football season, as we get closer to games kicking off, could be even better than last year. I know last year we were still fairly new and still navigating. Like we weren't even on YouTube for like half of the season until I randomly discovered, there's this thing called StreamYard and all these other platforms you can use that are for the most part free. So, and Actually, we'll touch on that later, but we got to continue the show about sort of a weird filibuster I just went on. But yeah, I mean, just make sure to subscribe to the channel, podcast feed, Twitter. Again, we are a show that is committed to the fans. That's, cross my heart. I mean, that's something that we will always commit to you guys, and we will never leave you guys in the dark. What was happening this week was SEC Media Days. A lot of things to talk about. Now, of course, other folks have voiced their opinions, and a lot of them are pretty similar to mine about like certain coaches and whatnot, and just some observations, I guess. A couple of big ones. First one probably would be LSU, Brian Kelly. A lot of things to be said there. Of course, it's obvious they have not won a season opener this decade, including 2020. They have not started 1-0 since that 2019 national championship team, which is weird to say. But it does sound like those folks there in Baton Rouge, they acknowledge that there is an urgency to start 1-0 this year and actually, win a season opener. Albeit, though, it's a lot tougher, or the intensity is a lot higher this time around because it's actually not a neutral site game. It's an actual road game at a hostile environment there in Death Valley, South Carolina, to be exact. Talking about Brian Kelly bringing up like they have like the Clemson Tiger Paw all over the place on the TVs and stuff, and the 1-0 mentality. That's all good to say, but just do it on the field. Again, that's all. That'd be my advice to Brian Kelly. Just show us on the field. Just give us something to believe in. And look, I know he's not stupid. They're aware of that. They know they have not done well in their season openers, and you guys remember the frustration and the banging the table last year after they lost to USC. And look, I know a lot of folks didn't like that. I know there were a lot of hotshot folks, the talking heads on TV who are like, "Oh, Brian Kelly getting pissed off. Oh, that's despicable and rude and unethical." But so what would you want him to do? Just sit there and be like, "Oh, whatever," like showing no emotion? Like, come on, man. Like, so what? You want Brian Kelly or any of these coaches? Could be Brian Kelly, Hugh Freeze, Ken on the board. What, you just want him to sit there and be like, "Yeah, we lost." Like, come on, give me a break. Some of these talking heads on TV, and you know who they are. I've, voiced my opinions on them. Especially when it comes to college football, it's like, so what you want these coaches to be freaking clones, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, sure, we lost the season opener, ha ha ha." What's where I'm showing emotion? I'm showing it right now because I'm passionate about this sport. So yeah, Brian Kelly at LSU, interesting stuff to hear from them. Ken on the board was another interesting one to talk about, or not talk about, just hearing him talk. I think they understand the urgency of this year. Last year was not what a lot of Bama folks are used to, but then again, the tail end of the Saban era wasn't the Saban era 5 or 6 years ago. It was definitely slipping a little bit, especially with like the close games, especially the 2 Iron Bowls, next to last Iron Bowls and Auburn at Jordan Hare Stadium were a little too close for comfort against average Auburn teams. But interesting to hear him talk. I think what's interesting to get from Ken on the board and Bama is that while they do have Keelan Russell, Ty Simpson's probably going to be your starter. I think half of the Bama fan base probably still doesn't know who he is. You'll know who he is come the first Saturday of the season when they go to Tallahassee to play Florida State. But the vibe I'm getting from Bama, is that while they know they have Keelan Russell, and look, there's probably some universe or some avenue where he does become the starter at some point and he takes over. Certainly he's the future of the program unless he stays there or doesn't leave. They feel pretty confident, right? You bring in Ryan Grubb, and I think something that a lot of folks have mentioned about Bama last year and what the feel is this year coming out of spring and heading into fall camp is that they were woeful and running the football. And that's, I think a lot of folks think of Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. It's like, oh, they've thrown it all over the yard, right? It's like the Mike Leach system. Well, for one, they don't run the Mike Leach system. They do run the football. Go watch the highlights at Washington and his previous stops in Indiana and Fresno and whatnot. That offense emphasizes running the football. They run the football, and they didn't do it last year. Some of it was, offensive line gelling. Of course, remember when they hired Ryan Grubb initially last year, they had the O-line coach. I believe he's still with the Seahawks, I believe. I don't know exactly, but they were supposed to bring him over from Washington along with Ryan Grubb, and those two, of course, left for the NFL. So that probably played a role in it. And it's so interesting, too. A lot of folks brought up Grubb not being there as it's not the biggest issue. The bigger issue was actually the online coach not being there, and it turned out to be true. I think with Grubb being there, I think with a second year in that system, him being in there, I think having more of an emphasis on running the football, and also not having a bipolar quarterback last year. And Jalen Milroe, look, I love Jalen Milroe as an athlete. Great athlete, can run around. Look, I'm a big fan of those type of quarterbacks. Though I agree with all the other folks, it was sort of a, will he or won't he play to his potential? Will the actual Jalen Milroe, who can run around and do crazy stuff, will he show up? Will it be just the average version of him? I don't think you're getting that going forward, where it's Ty Simpson or Austin Mack or Keelan Russell in the future and years to come. I don't think you're getting that. And also, I really believe they're going to really emphasize running the football. That's just me. Hugh Freeze in Auburn, definitely a lot of pressure there. Of course, to win. I think it's interesting what Hugh Freeze mentioned about sort of Jackson Arnold coming over from Oklahoma. Of course, he was with a defensive-oriented head coach. And just talking about instilling some confidence in him. And I think this speaks to a bigger truth about some of these defensive-minded coaches. And Bud Elliott brings it up. Also, of course, we'll bring up his blue chip ratio here in a second. But, Bud brought it up a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday or a couple of days ago? I don't remember. I think it was yesterday on their show, Cover 3, that it's just the thing about these defensive coaches who don't respect offense is really a bit of an issue. That's been long for a long time. It's the Muschamp protocol, right? Muschamp, when he was at Florida and South Carolina, totally disrespected offense. He hired like freaking Brent Pease, whoever the heck that is. He hired like Charlie Weiss, and just like coaches who obviously don't fit the players that you have. And it's just, you have another example being like Zach Arnett. Just the thing that I agree with him, the thing that really bothers me is these defensive coaches who just totally disrespect offense. And I hope that Brent Venables isn't going down the Muschamp path where it's like, run whatever offense we want, whatever. No, you can't do that. And I think it's been proven by guys like Kirby Smart who understand offense, who respect offense, who are willing to, actually run an offense that is competent and is not, something that is just being ran by other teams in the league. And I think it also helps too, you're recruiting well. You have a lot of talent, but I don't know. That's just a whole other rabbit hole we could go down in the future. But just the fact that, Hugh Freeze had to say, look at the installed confidence into Jackson Arnold, which makes sense, right? You have a guy in Brent Venables, very intense, sort of has that drill sergeant mentality. I'm sure at practice, like most coaches probably do, I'm sure it's more intensified. The fact that they brought in Seth Luttrell, OU alumni, just was a very much so, quote unquote, oil and water mixture. I think I know a lot of folks were concerned about hearing that. I'm not too surprised by that. And I think having Jackson Arnold with someone who is, a few Freeze a little more relaxed, sort of, more chill, I guess. He's, offensive mind, he's going to be, I'm not trying to say he's trying to play psychiatrist, but he kind of has to, based on what I'm assuming happened last year. Well, I know, again, a lot of folks don't like to hear that. That, to me, is actually a bit of a blessing in disguise, that you're having to play psychologist with the quarterback. You're having to, build him back or destroy him, I guess, build him back up, I guess. And we'll see. Look, it's in a lot of ways sort of the reverse Bo Nix protocol, right? Bo Nix leaves Auburn after his whole entire player career was, new offensive coordinator every single year. At that point, it was getting annoying, and look, I don't blame him. Goes to Oregon. There's more stability there. A coaching staff that actually cares about him, and he ends up blossoming to a first-round draft pick. Could that be the reverse? Could Jackson Arnold actually be going into a much better situation at Auburn? While Bo Nix left a horrible situation at Auburn, went to a better one at Oregon. So we'll see about that. Other coaches to talk about. Of course, you have Sark. The typical talking points. Him and Arch Manning were there. Of course, there's the gaffe. With the I don't know if it was a troll job or just a gaffe on the people who were producing the event, which is the SEC, about having the Aggie, the Texas A&M Warham playing while Sark was talking. Part of me does think that was definitely a gaffe, not a gaffe. Actually, not a gaffe. I'm pretty sure it was some sort of troll job probably, but something that Sark said, it's pretty typical, boilerplate stuff. Same with Kirby Smart. Josh Heupel, sort of the same thing. But one thing I did want to bring up, and speaking of Bud Elliott, something he brought up, and I do agree with him that I saw this a lot, especially starting on Monday. Is SEC Media Days, is it still newsworthy? Because while you do have, like, Hugh Freeze talking and King on the board, especially the guys who have a lot of pressure on them, I guess it is, like, interesting to listen to them talk. But besides that, where you have, like, Brian, you have, like, not Brian Kelly, but you have, like, these ESPN guys, and it's not just, well, them, it's like people like Pete Thamel and Brett McMurphy, and this is something that Bud brought up on, I believe, on Monday. It's like they're tweeting stuff out about, like, Garrett Nussmeier saying, "Oh, yeah, the SEC is the toughest conference in the country." Cool, I got water from my fridge today. That's not newsworthy stuff. That's not like, oh man, that's so shocking. The SEC has the best road environments. Well, duh. Like, I could tweet out that. Look, I'm not bashing Pete Thamel or Brett McMurphy, but it's like, that's not newsworthy. Like, that's just people saying stuff. So it's like, yeah, I mean, is it newsworthy? I don't know, man. I kind of understand where Bud's coming from. It is kind of what it is. It's a propaganda machine, right? It's, got to, SEC, woohoo! But it's like, I don't know. I could go onto the SEC network and watch that. I don't need to have a full-on convention of, SEC propaganda. And you have Greg Sankey standing there, and he's like, "Oh, SEC this, SEC that. We're never going to 9 conference games." And look, I understand it's the best conference in America, especially at the top and sort of at the bottom. But it's just, I do agree with Bud. It's like the propaganda stuff. It's getting annoying. And then you have, like, people like Pete Thamel, who, look, I totally respect him, Brett McMurphy, now at On 3. It's just like these guys tweeting stuff like, oh, Garrett Nussmeier says something. Is that really newsworthy? Like, come on, man. Like, I know you're better than that. Like, that's not something that should be newsworthy. It's just, I don't know. The more and more we get into this new world of college football, I guess I'll sort of end this segment here. The less and less I think these media days are less and less newsworthy. Like, there's nothing major that comes out of it. Like, what? Okay, like, the only other big thing besides coaches talking is, like, what? Marcel Reed not being there for Texas A&M. But that's it. Like, that's like the only thing people are talking about is, oh yeah, Marcel Reed wasn't there for Texas A&M. That's weird. Why is he not there? But yeah, for the most part, I do agree with Bud. Like you said on Monday, it's like this thing's not newsworthy anymore. It's just a SEC propaganda machine. Got to get started. Get everyone, rah, cheering for the conference and whatnot. It's like, cool. I can go get water from my fridge. Congrats. Speaking of Bud Elliott, I'm going to get some water first. I'm going to react or give my thoughts on his blue chip ratio, which is probably the thing I was looking forward to this week when he announced it was coming out. So before we do that, I'm going to get some water and we'll continue. So let me get this pulled up on Bud's Twitter. Of course, well, not necessarily his Twitter. It's actually CBS Sports. But yeah, so Bud Elliott, of course, not an actual friend of the program, but someone that, I trust, one of the bigger voices in the college football news industry. He's been around for a while. Someone I respect, him and that whole crew over there at Cover 3, Chip, Tom, and Danny. Great guys. Always love listening to their show during the season, especially. They do a lot of cool stuff. Their Saturday night reactions are a lot of fun, especially when there's a lot of late games going on, when they're like reacting to games live. But Bud Elliott does what he's been doing for a long time, which is blue chip ratio. And you're wondering, well, what does that mean? Well, what it is essentially is it just breaks down the teams who have recruited well enough to win a national championship. So, disclaimer, this is not going to include any Big 12 teams. I've already seen the list, and I think Bud's also somewhat acknowledged this as well. You're not going to see any Big 12 teams. I'm sorry, but sounds like I'm speaking for him, but that's true. You're not going to see any of those teams on there. I know a lot of folks get pissed off about that, and the Big 12, fanatics come out and be like, "Oh, why aren't you putting any Big 12 teams on here?" Buddy, they're not recruiting the same way as like the other conferences are. So I don't know what to tell you. They're not the same level. I mean, they're called what it is. They're a glorified G5 conference. Though that's fine with me as a fan of college football. I like that. Does that mean they're going to produce like a national title contender? No, they're not. But that's okay. That's fine. But I understand you guys aren't happy about that. I'm sure none of you like to hear, people saying that. But it's true. You're not going to be on these lists. You're not teams that are seriously competing for national championships. And look, if Texas Tech and Cody Campbell changed that with the money, the money influx coming in, cool. Until that changes, this list isn't going to change that much, or at least you're not going to see any current Big 12 teams in there. Some of your former friends will be in there, but not anyone current. And again, if you need a reminder, and by the way, too, the blue chip ratio is also in the college football video game last year and this year because Bud was a contributor in that. So, so this, again, if you haven't seen this before, but you play the video game, if you go to like the recruiting, like my school in the recruiting tab, if you've ever seen the blue chip ratio, like on one of those like tiles or whatever you click on, that's the same thing of this. So that's pretty cool to have that in the video game. But anyway, so we go from the top, I guess. So the first, I'm looking at this on Twitter, on the CBS Sports Twitter account. So their first image is like the higher teams, and you get the lower teams. So we're going from descending order, some top to bottom. So at number 1, Bama, 89%. Ohio State has at 2, 89%. Same, no shocker. Georgia, 84. They're at 3. The fourth team is interesting. That's Texas A&M. Let me explain this in a second. To be clear, I have not watched today's Cover 3 episode yet, so I'm pretty sure Buzz explained this ad nauseum, but I'm assuming what I'm going to say here is basically verbatim what he said, so I'm not copying him. So, Bud, if you're listening to this, I didn't copy you. I didn't watch the show yet. But to explain Texas A&M for Bud here, I guess to explain it for him, Texas A&M, all this, the calculator stuff and getting the averages and whatnot, this number, them being at 4, if you're on this list, going down, okay, at 82% on the blue chip ratio, is mainly because of past recruiting cycles in the past, I'm assuming 5 years, right? So that does include the tail end of the Jimbo Fisher era where they're actually recruiting pretty well. Like, for example, that number 1 class a couple years ago, some of the guys are still there. Current administration, same thing. They are recruiting pretty well. So it's a really snapshot of teams within, I think, the last 5 years, I believe, the way he's really explained it. That's where these numbers come from. And to people who are shocked by this, you shouldn't be. I mean, look, A&M under Jimbo, you can, give Jimbo a lot of crap and he deserves a lot of it. The one thing you couldn't knock him down for is recruiting. Now, it's relative because, again, in recruiting, and look, it's not the same in the video game because you don't deal with the stuff, the real life stuff, but the real life stuff in real life and recruiting is like, you may have, for example, Texas A&M get a number 1 class. Those guys weren't the best character guys. Some of them have poor backgrounds. Some of them were, not totally focused on the field. Some of them maybe had like poor performance in, the classroom or in classes and whatnot. So there's different reasons why why A&M, why some of those guys haven't panned out, but they're still up there, 82%. That's pretty high. And I think that tells you how much a lot of folks believe that Mike Elko inherited a good roster, and he did, and it's still there. Oregon at 78. They're at 5. They're in the top 5. No shocker. Texas, 78. At number 6. Same. That's about what I expect them to be. LSU at number 7, looks like. Yeah, number 7. Interesting to say the least. A little bit lower than I thought they would be. Notre Dame is behind them at 73. No surprise there. Oklahoma at 70. A little higher than I thought. But given how Brent Venables has done in recruiting, now look, on the field stuff, whatever, they've recruited pretty well, I think Oklahoma has. And again, this is still, I believe, including some of the Lincoln Riley players as well. So some that's, I think, still baked in. But they're at the 70%. We go to the bottom here. Again, this is not everyone on the list. I think the graphic here only puts out like the top 18 teams or whatever. After that, Penn State, 68%. A little bit lower, I guess, in the totem pole. I think what Bud has mentioned before, I think the sweet number is like 60 and above, I believe, like 65 and above. So if you're in that range, you should be really good to win a national title. And if you're below that, it's not impossible to win it, but it's a lot less. The chances are a lot lower. So Penn State being at 68, a little surprising. Now, this one is really surprising. It's Miami at 64. They've recruited really well. They've stacked up recruiting classes. And I just totally thought that because they've stacked up like top 10 recruiting classes, I thought Miami would be in like the 70% bracket, but they're not. Okay, that's fair. Florida, not surprised. They're at 64 as well. Auburn at 64. While that may be low, given a SEC team, them in Florida, you have to understand, especially for Auburn coming off the Brian Harsin era, and look, go back to some of Bud's old blue chip ratios from a couple years ago. Like, they were in danger of falling out, and that's how bad the recruiting was under Brian Harsin. It's just like Auburn was like, we're some of these teams are on the low end of the list, like in the low 50s, like, whoa, gross. So thankfully, Hugh Freeze has gotten them above that threshold, and they're getting closer to being in the higher echelon of the 60% range. So, thank God for Hugh Freeze. Michigan at 57, not great. Could be a little bit better. USC, same thing, 57. Clemson at 55. Interesting to say the least. And of course, a lot of folks are, have a lot of faith in what Clemson has this year and coming back, and especially with, Kate Klubnik coming back and have a lot of better receivers they've had recently. They're certainly probably the only team on here that's in the 50s that could win a national title. Low as it is, they could, but it's not likely. After that, they round up the last two teams on here. No real surprise, I guess, to a certain extent. Tennessee and Florida State. They round out the top 18. So the first 7 or 10 teams, no real shocker. Again, I think the one that's really going to piss off a lot of folks is probably Texas A&M. It's like, again, it's where's on-field results? Well, look, on-field results outside of recruiting, two separate things. And I think Texas A&M, being based on recruiting, both the telling the Jimbo era and with the current administration, I don't see this as being a problem. So for the most part, I agree with this. I think it is interesting to see this change over the years, and I don't think there's any of the other teams on here that were even lower than this, because again, it can get pretty low. Like you have like the 17%, like the 20%. Be interesting to see what those teams are. I haven't looked at the full list of these are like the teams that can actually win the national title this year, or at least have recruited to that point. So yeah, blue chip ratio, always fun to look at. And again, like I said earlier, cool that it's so amazing that it's actually in the college football video game, like something from real life is in the game. So that is pretty cool that that's available to us, and we can have that both in real life and in the video game. So yeah, blue chip ratio from Bud Elliott, favorite time of the year to look at that. Sort of gives you a good gauge of what teams are the most talented and could potentially win a national championship. Let's throw water real quick here, and then we'll move on to our team record projection. Speaking of teams. So, as I mentioned, we are doing our team record projections, and it'll actually, before we do that, I forgot to put out the link for the show. Let me do that real quick. I can't believe I forgot to do that. Usually I'm pretty on top of doing that, but today I didn't, so I guess I will make that, rectify that mistake, so stand by. Okay, the tweet's been sent out. I don't know what happened, but yeah, we were late on getting that out there. But yeah, if you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, just totally ignore that. That's a mistake on my part. Anyway, yeah. So 2025 team record projections continue. Yes, Louisville. Of course, we've been doing this for a while now. Again, like I said, on Tuesday, we'll probably start stacking teams. We'll start doing multiple teams as we get closer to like fall camp starting. But I think we have enough time to continue doing just an individual team per show. But yeah, today we're doing the Louisville Cardinals from the ACC. Of course, Jeff Brom back. I think he is definitely one of the more underappreciated coaches in the country. Definitely one of the better play callers in the country, Jeff Brom. And he's been consistent everywhere he's been at. Like besides Purdue, like he's been great at everywhere he's been at. Whether it's, I believe, what was it, Western Kentucky, I believe, before that? Yeah, Western Kentucky, Purdue, Louisville, his alma mater. A great coach. And there's a reason why whenever there's been a lot of like head coaching, openings, you always sort of see Jeff Brom's name floating around. But hey, as long as he's at his alma mater, I don't think he's going anywhere. Unless it's some like a massive big job, but whatever. So he's back again. Of course, the staff is mostly the same as it's always been since he's been there. or since he took the job a couple years ago. Miller Moss from USC comes in, probably a better fit than last year with the previous quarterback they took in, but we'll see. Of course, Brom and how they've been doing. 10-4 first year, made it to the ACC championship game, almost the same record as last year, 9-4. Again, very successful. Again, they do have Miller Moss coming in, comes over from USC. Somewhat battle tested. He's been around for a while. Of course, everyone remembers that Holiday Bowl game where he set the record for the most yards in that game. He's probably going to be one of the most accomplished quarterbacks that Jeff Brom has ever inherited, and that's saying a lot given his track record. This could be a lot of fun. Again, you can say about Lincoln Riley and whatnot, and what happened. Last year happened, but Miller Moss wasn't terrible. I guess you can make the argument it doesn't totally fit what he wants to do, but I think bringing him into Jeff Brom's system, more of a pro style set, I think that definitely fits what he is able to do, at least what Miller Moss is able to do versus what you had with Tyler Chuck last year with Chuck. Backfield, rushing attack, obviously going to be the strength. Right? Isaac Brown, the guy who, look, give credit where credit is due. Josh Pate told us, he warned us about Isaac Brown being the freshman last year. He was fantastic. He'll be good again this year. Him and Watson, the running back, both fairly good last year. And I expect them to be probably the best running back duo, if not in the ACC, if not in the country. Could be pretty good. Receiver-wise, pretty good last year with Bell and Lacey. So they expect to be pretty good again this year. They've also brought in some transfers with was it Bobby Golden from Akron and TJ McWilliams from Minnesota. But there'll be targets here in the third round of football. I mean, look, as much as they emphasize running the football up there, they can also toss it around. And having a guy like Miller Moss, who has sort of that brought up in again that air raid style, probably fits more in the pro style stuff. To what Jeff Brom is doing up there in Louisville. I think this could be an interesting fit. Especially with these receivers who, I'm sure a lot of folks probably don't know who most people probably don't know the receiving core up there, but they're still fairly good. And I think that having a really good quarterback coming in that fits the system is really good. Offensive line, their strength was pass protection last season. That should be fine this year, I believe. Tight ends, we'll see a lot of unproven talent there. The outlook from the offense, again, with Moss coming in, it seems like they should be poised to have both a decent passing attack, but also a really good backfield. Defense, a lot of new faces, a lot of new players especially at the D-line position. We'll see. Linebackers probably need the strength this year with TJ Quinn and Shaquan Clark coming back. They should be probably the sort of the engine of that defense, right? The engine of that side of the football. Secondary, same thing. They were not good last year. Thanks to that Miami game where it was, an accoutrement of yards you can put up on them. Probably not the best, but defense, we'll see. I think the linebackers probably going to be your best bet to get good action from them, good stats and whatnot. We'll see about the other parts of it. Now, their schedule sets up pretty well for them, I would say. We talked about Louisville a couple years ago. Think about 2 years ago when Brom first came in. Much like that initial first-year schedule, you're pretty workable, I'll say at least. I mean, they do get Clemson, but it's at home. And it's on a Friday or Thursday. I believe it's on a Friday. Yeah, so it's a standalone game. Be careful. You'll also go to SMU. Grant you, it's a somewhat a glorified G5 team. You do go there. I think you're better than them, but that's still tricky. Then you also get Miami on the road. It's also, I believe, on a Friday as well. So how about that? Your two biggest games, if you will, not including SMU, both on a Friday. Besides that, you are either equal to or better than most of these teams on your schedule. Eastern Kentucky, so your FCS in-state team. James Madison, your in-state G5 team. At Pitt, Virginia, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Cal, SMU, and Kentucky. Besides maybe the SMU game, just disregarding the two big games on Friday night, you should be favored in most of those games. With the exception of SMU, I could understand a situation where they may not be favored in that game because it's at home for the Mustangs. But besides that game, you should be favored in most of those games. Even the Virginia Tech game. Again, as much as I respect Lane Stadium, the atmosphere, like I said before, I'm just really concerned about that staff there and Blacksburg, Brent Pry and that staff there. I'm really worried about the direction that program's going. And who knows what what they look like. There could be an interim coach by then. We'll see. But yeah, again, besides SMU, you should be favored in most of those games. Now, Miami and Clemson is a different story, but we'll see. Again, I like the roster they have. I like the running back situation. I think their quarterback situation fits better to what they had last year. I like the coaching staff and very underrated or underappreciated staff. I don't think it's underrated. I just think they're underappreciated in what they have done and what they continue to do there. So based on all that, based on that schedule, their best case now, their FanDuel number, again, they're not a sponsor of the show. We just use them as an asset. The FanDuel number over under is 8.5. That makes sense to me. The best case scenario for me is 10-2. You lose your 2 tough games and you win the rest. That's a really good year for Louisville, and they could be in the market for the ACC championship game. We'll see. Worst case scenario, though, is 8-4, and that's considering like injuries, maybe like you need to get nicked by an SMU, maybe nicked by Virginia Tech. Just depends on that how their season goes. I went with my reasonable here. I went with 9-3. It's a compromise between the worst case and best case. I just think 9-3 is on the table here. Again, I think that's a really good year for Louisville. Again, taking advantage of a very friendly schedule. The Clemson game and the Miami game, that's going to be tough, but we'll see. Luckily, you get Clemson at home. The SMU game, to me, that game, the SMU game, it worries me. So that's why I have that one as a potential loss there. So, 9-3, reasonable. Worst case 8-4, best case 10-2. I think it's going to be a really good team again. They've really have avoided a totally tough schedule. And again, it is the ACC, and it's really not a, it's not a murderer's row as it is in like the Big Ten in some cases, and especially in the SEC. But yeah, I think Louisville this year again could be well above that win total, and I think they will. It's no real shocker there. Q&A time. We get 2 questions here, and we'll get out of here. First one. Speaking of the blue chip ratio earlier, why can't a Big 12 team win the Natty? Look, I'm not saying anything's impossible. Look, it can definitely happen. There's nothing in like the United States Constitution that says a Big 12 team cannot win the national championship. Look, it's not impossible, but it's definitely unlikely. Look, again, going back to the blue chip ratio, when it through those 18 teams that Bud Elliott listed as teams who can win the national championship, none of those teams were current Big 12 teams. 2 of them were former Big 12 teams. One of them are the current. Again, it goes back to the fact that it's a glorified G5 league. A lot of those teams are not recruiting the same levels like teams and like obviously the SEC and the Big Ten, not even the ACC, at least currently. The Big 12 just does not have the talent level there. It's just not an interactive conference. Like, for example, everyone's talking about Texas Tech and Cody Campbell and Joey McGuire and all that, and the $1 million or $15 million roster and whatnot. Well, that sounds good. And this is something that Bud's brought up before on Cover 3. It's like, do people want to go to Lubbock, Texas, and like Western Texas, like may as well be Mexico? Or do you want to go play in like Athens, Georgia, or Miami, Florida, or Columbus, Ohio? Definitely more appealing places to play for, and certainly better programs will have history of pumping out guys in the NFL. Again, nothing against Joe McGuire and Texas Tech. I like them. I like the way they're sort of building up there. Now, it's not a finished product, and it's not, look, the talent you can get to Lubbock is not, not the same as you can get in, get to places like Columbus, Ohio, and, Athens, Georgia, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Auburn, Alabama. It's just not the same. And again, it's not me being mean to the Big 12. It's just what it is. And this is just how it's going to be for a while unless those teams step up, right? You get, more and more teams, to become more attractive. And you just think about it, really the only team that's in an attractive area, or really 2 teams, is Arizona State and TCU. Arizona State, for obvious reasons, is Arizona. The chicks out there are amazing. That's fact. That's not me just saying that. Other folks have said that before as well. The other one is TCU. It's in Dallas. It's in the metro area, right? I know it's not Dallas proper, but still, it's in the area. Opportunities there, a lot of money there. It's a private school, Christian school, a lot of money, whatnot. At least older inherited money. So, look, those are the 2 appealing areas for recruits to go to. Besides that, like, you want to go to Stillwater? No offense to folks who, went to Oklahoma State. I know someone who did. No offense there, but look, you recruits really want to go there, and you want to go to, like, rural Oklahoma, would have, like, tornadoes and stuff like that, and a lot of nothing. Look, as someone who's a weather enthusiast, you would love to go storm chasing. Besides, there's really nothing appealing out there. Look, I know they have with the Legends Tower being built in Oklahoma City, which will surpass the trade centers in New York. Like, besides that, there's nothing really appealing out there. Another one, Manhattan, Kansas. Love Kansas State. There's nothing appealing about going to Manhattan, Kansas. It's like in the middle of a cornfield. Tucson, Arizona, sort of appealing, but I don't know, man. It's like they're more focused on basketball. They've never really been a major player in football, unlike Arizona State has been. What's another one here? Kansas, same thing. Bigger player in basketball. I don't know if I want to go for football. Love the coach. Iowa State, same thing. It's like I love the coach and Matt Campbell. I love what they've done there. But again, it's like, do you, a 5-star kid, do you want to go and play in Tempe, Arizona, or do you want to play in Ames, Iowa? I would much rather go to Tempe, Arizona than Ames, Iowa every single day. For football reasons. For other reasons, like for storm chasing, yeah, I would go there. But yeah, again, the Big 12 is G5. It's a glorified G5 league. The recruiting is not the same as the other conferences. And look, that's not a bad thing. Look, that's what makes the Big 12 unique. That's why they're, as Josh Pate says, they're America's college football conference. They represent the craziness of college football. They represent the weirdness and the, the strangeness of this sport. But the thing is, they just do not have teams that are in that blue chip ratio. And unless something drastically changes, unless Texas Tech somehow is going to hit, they found the secret formula and you're like, oh, we can just spend a lot of money and get players to come here regardless of, whether or not we've pumped out players in the NFL recently. Besides that, it's like, it's not going to happen, at least in the interim. Down the road, maybe, if things work out a certain way and they maybe get, other teams to join them, especially if the ACC were to collapse, which is going to happen, it's just a matter of time, then that's different. But at the moment, it ain't going to happen. It's unfortunate for those fans there who want to believe they can compete, but that's just not the way this game plays. This is the deep state of college football, so I don't know what else to tell you. Last question here. Thoughts on the new Supergirl teaser poster. So this came out a couple days ago. Of course, a lot of you know by now, the new Superman movie, James Gunn's Superman. What's the chick's name who plays Supergirl? It's Millie Alcock or something like that. Apologies for butchering the name. I think it's, Millie Alcock or something. She appears as Supergirl. Towards the end of the movie, they get Crypto setting up her movie. Of course, we knew before she was playing the character, and from what I have seen, I think a lot of folks are sort of lukewarm on the reception of the character appearing. I think she looks great. The costume looks great, especially after seeing the set photos that were leaked. Apparently, I think those are real. But we've got an official first look at the poster, and it's kind of giving me some Shazam vibes of the old DC EU, sort of similar, but it's cool. The costume's definitely updated. Looks about the same as it did in the Superman film. It looks good. Interesting to see how it looks. Of course, we know, Jason Momoa's coming back, playing Lobo now. He's, different character now. So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for it, but yeah, the first poster looks good. About what you would expect, sort of that vibe, if you will. If you watch that, if you remember that final scene of Superman, at least before the post credits, you know what I'm referring to. That definitely getting that same, that similar vibe. And of course, that was leaked months ago back in the Reddit leaks. So yeah, the new poster for Supergirl. Excited about that. Now, I know a lot of you are wondering, hey, where's all the Marvel news and Star Wars news? Well, to be frank, not a whole lot lately. So it's mainly just been college football. But look, I'm sure we'll get some Marvel news soon. And there's also been a lot of stuff about Doomsday. A lot of leaks have been coming out. Of course, there's no Comic-Con really this year. Marvel said, screw it, we're not going this year because Doomsday's been such a ambitious undertaking to get out. And yeah, we'll see if there's anything new coming out. But for the most part, it's been kind of quiet lately. But hopefully there will be stuff to talk about soon. Of course, we have Fantastic Four coming out soon. Of course, I'll give my final thoughts on it. Of course, I believe that is the premiere. Yeah, it is next week. Yeah, it comes out next week, I believe. Yeah, so that's coming out soon. But besides Fantastic Four, it's really going to be pretty quiet for a little bit from Marvel, unless we get another Doomsday announcement for the rest of the cast, I guess. But not that's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, that's kind of it for non-football related stuff. And of course, speaking of NFL stuff, of course, the camps are opening up again. Hall of Fame game starts in a couple weeks, so that's cool. That football is back to a certain extent. But yeah, of course, we'll eventually do the Buccaneers record projection, all that. We'll do that once we finish all the college stuff. Don't worry. And we'll start talking more about Buccaneers stuff as we get closer to the season. Of course, on Tuesday, we had the uniform reveal, the new creamsicles or the additional throwback uniforms for this year. So we touch down on Tuesday if you're wondering about that. So that's it for the show. Of course, we'll be back on Tuesday. Enjoy your weekend and whatnot. Again, make sure you subscribe, YouTube channel, podcast feed, Twitter and whatnot. So until next Tuesday, enjoy your weekend. Of course, here in Florida, it's going to be less rainy. It's going to be hot this weekend. So, we trade off the rain for the heat. And yes, I am paying attention to potentially more tropical mischief. We'll talk about more about that on Tuesday, I'm sure. But again, enjoy your weekend and have fun out there in your last few weeks of summer, I guess, if you will. But so again, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the rest of your week, and until Tuesday, we'll see you on the next stream.